Dr. Greenspan, it's great to be with you today. Before I ask you any other question, I wanted to ask you what impact you think President-elect Biden's win has on the global economic outlook and particularly on the outlook for the United States.
Biden came along just in time. I don't think we all could have taken any more of Trump, and getting him off the screen was the most important thing that could happen. In other words, people ask me, is it policy? I say, no, it's the removal of a hard negative impact which Trump brought to the scene and brought to the marketplace. I mean, I don't want to talk about him now that he's gone. I hope he hears me. You're gone. But he was suppressing world economic activity, and to an extent that we're going to find out in the immediate future, because substituting Biden for Trump is far more important economic issue than anything you or I can talk about. And it's inconceivable that that could happen to a democratic society, but we saw it in front of us going on and building and building and building until fortunately it was undermined. I don't know Biden all of that well. I've met him and spoken to him, and he's as intelligent as he appears in his interviews and the like.
The markets have generally been relatively upbeat since President-elect Biden was elected. So is your sense that this market reaction, how much of it is it that the market assumes there's going to be divided government and the Senate will be confirmed for the Republicans? How much of it is it that the market assumes there will be maybe a faster growth than what you were talking about, because President Biden will be able to push some of his climate agenda and infrastructure building right now?
I doubt if it'll be much, basically because the Republicans still hold political control in key areas which can constrain it. But remember that the effects of the virus has been so dominant and so negative that you're going to have some democratic type policies implemented by Republicans, because it's clearly something we have to catch up on. It looks as though the virus has a life expectancy, which is increasingly shorter.
What has been going on between the US and China over the last few years? If you had to guess today with President-elect Biden, what changes will he make in terms of the economic policy with China? What would he keep from what we have got today?
Well, first of all, I know what he should do, but it's not the same thing as what he's going to do. The question that I found most fascinating is, how do we in China repeat what you have done in the United States? And I said to myself, Mao Zedong turned over in his grave. I mean, it's unfortunately, after a very prolonged period, where the Chinese economy, basically because of Deng Xiaoping, grew increasingly liberal. The Politburo, which always met, I knew they met, no one ever had a leak out of the Politburo. something happened around 2005 or thereabouts. And I don't know what it is.
On the positive side, they have been dealing with this COVID virus better than the West, as Europe or US. On the negative side, as you said, even in the last recent days, as they stopped the Ant Financial IPO and delayed it due to regulatory issues, and as the government has become more involved in the business of the companies that are supposed to be run relatively independently, I think, as you said, that's a major shift also, isn't it?
Oh, it's a major change. Do you know Jack Ma?
Yeah.
Anyway, I remember having lunch with him several years ago. Somebody sat me next to him. We had a long conversation. And he was telling me about his building up his company. And I say, be careful, the government will cut you down if you get too too important. Little did I know that that was forecastable. But he actually, as you know, made a huge, his company became very significant.
Of course,
but
both Alibaba and now with Ant Financial, twice in a row. Yeah.
Alibaba, yes, indeed. And so that China continues to change, but the problem is at the moment, we're dealing with Xi, who is a dictator. We don't know what is going on in the Politburo, but one can readily guess that's where the change occurred. China is something, is a country we cannot avoid. And unless we find a manner to go back to the relationships we had in an earlier decade, we're going to be losing potential growth in the United States as a consequence. Of course, they will be losing growth too, but because they're losing growth, we are. I mean, I knew the president of China very well. His favorite music was, you might say, American classical. And his favorite composer, I believe, was Schubert.
Okay.
And I said, when I'm sitting at lunch with him, and we're talking about Chinese music. And he says, oh, my favorite composer is Schubert, to which I fell out of my chair. But in fact, that is not the China that exists today.
So when you look forward, what advice do you have for President Biden, President-elect Biden, for his team coming in on how do you jumpstart our economy moving into 2021 and beyond? What would be the things that you would advise? And also, how should we, how would you manage the economy based on the lessons that you've learned over many years?
First thing I would do is reverse everything that the previous president did, because that in itself will lift the economy. I mean, it was an awful period to live through, and we haven't yet gained the benefits that we're going to feel, because I mean, Biden is a rational person, sensible person. That is, I hate to say this, you cannot say that about his predecessor. And that has had massive implications on many aspects of the American society, which we haven't fully unwound, but we will. And I think that Biden is the ideal person. As you know, I'm a Republican.
Of course.
Guess whom I voted for? So I have for credentials here as an honorary Democrat.